hot seat tonight. We're very privileged to be heading all the way to a conversation straight from Homa Bay County, and we're happy to be hosting Suba North legislator Honorable Millie Odhiambo, otherwise known as Amilo Geza. Did I say it right? Geza. Is it S or Z? Z.
Yes.
We'll come to that, but thank you so much for being with us in the hot
Thank
seat.
you also.
I see we're almost twinning.
Same spirit.
Same spirit.
Yeah.
It was that kind of day.
Yes.
Well, welcome so much to the hot seat. We're
Thank
very
you.
humbled to have you here with us. And as always, we always begin this show by allowing you to tell us your story. So we're going to take you back to how you came into this world. What part of the country was that, and how was it growing up for you?
Many years ago.
Many.
I was born in Homa Bay. Homa Bay is a small town, the shores of Lake Victoria. Our father was a politician, and our mother was a social worker. Fourth child out of 8. My father died 2 days after my birthday, when I was in, I think, class 1. My mom was expecting the last 2 kids, twins, so they didn't see my dad. So we were raised 8 of us by a single mother. So I basically much saw the struggles of a mother, the struggles of a woman to raise children on our own in a very difficult world. And so yeah, I learned pretty much early to be a strong woman from my mother, from her struggles. She was quite a gentle giant, gentle in the sense that she didn't have my strong fire, but she was quietly very strong. So I take a bit of both my dad and a bit of I always say I take the politics from my dad, but the social justice aspect from my mom. My mom, as a social worker in an era when there was no feeder, no Credo, no such organizations, she used to take up children. Their office was like actually the office of the women rep right now, combined with feeders and all that. She would connect children to institutions that would give scholarships. She would connect children to bursaries. She would help persons with disabilities get into schools. So I know very many people, journalists, lawyers and all that, who managed to go to school through her. She would take spouses who are not responsible to court. And that's actually what I became before I became a politician. My dad was a member of the regional assembly and was vying for Beta parliamentary seat when he died in a boating accident. My early childhood was actually excellent. I remember my childhood with a lot of fondness because I had both worlds.
I want to take you back to, the struggles of your mother, although you say you had a very comfortable upbringing, despite her struggles and all those people that she also tried to help. In modern day society, if we could just fast track it to now, do we appreciate the role of a single mother, as it were, now versus then?
I don't think we do. Even then, my mom, it's just that she was lucky. She was an educated woman, so she was employed. She actually trained first as a nurse and then a social worker. But you can see that, even in her time, actually, it was difficult because when my dad died, not many parents died then. So we grew up as very unique kids. We were unique because we were orphaned. So every time people would be coming to our place, they said, oh, those are the orphans. So we were branded because we didn't have a father. I think in our old town you could count maybe five or so who had fathers who had died at most. Not like now where you count the ones who are both parents. And because of that, even my mom was very strict, religious, and so we had a week of prayer in November, and every year from her church at Seventh-day Adventist. And the church made sure, even if they missed any other house, they would not miss ours because of the fact that she was a widow. And when they came to our house, I remember they always used to ask my mom, and I didn't understand why. And we'd be lining up all 8 of us. Then they would go, how are you managing raising all these 8?
Yes.
And she says, you know, it's God. And I didn't understand, because right now I don't have a child, but I take care of my nieces and my nephews. And sometimes I'm like, and I'm a member of parliament, and it's a struggle raising 2 or 3. But my mom, on a smaller salary, raised 8 of us. So for sure it was God.
And she made sure you never lacked.
No, we didn't lack. She was very innovative and very creative. And that I thank God for my mom and for the fact that she was educated. That sometimes we were struggling and we didn't realize that we were struggling. Because when my dad was there, like I told you, my dad died 2 days after my birthday. And we had a very, very wonderful birthday. He would throw us a really lavish birthday. Other kids came, we bought new clothes. And I remember my sister and I were both bought shades, a red one and a yellow one.
Those days?
Yes, yes. My dad was very stylish. He used to take my mom shopping designer wear and stuff. He was really stylish. So when he died, that style had to go down. We had a car when he was alive. The car disappeared with him because I think he had taken him to the garage or something. So our life came from a life of a bit of luxury, and then we were like the bourgeois of the town. If there were public functions, we would go and sit right in front with the DC and everything. But then suddenly you move from that to being any other kid. That was a bit difficult for me, for a bit. And then I got used to it after a while. I actually written a book and I mentioned that. But what I found very impressive, that my mom, even in those challenges, like when she had to make us a birthday, she wouldn't sit and whine and say, oh, if your dad was here, I would have made this birthday that way, da, da, da. She was very good at being creative. So if she couldn't, say, afford sodas or juice, she made. She colored the water, boiled water, colored, and put sugar. Then we would go out boasting and telling people, my mom knows how to make soda. But we didn't know that she was making soda because it was difficult to buy for all 8 of us plus others. So yeah, we would do our birthday, and she knew how to make sweets. I don't know how she would make sweets and different things, but she would just make, and then she would bake a cake from Majiko. So she became very innovative in the way she would do our things. So yeah, I thank God for that, because she enabled us. And then she taught us to share. Like if something, I remember, for instance, there was a time there was a chiffon hit as a fashion when I was in high school. And she couldn't afford to buy for, we are like 5 girls. So she couldn't buy all 5 of us. So what she did is she would buy for one of us. And because we're almost the same size, then I would go with it this time. Half term, somebody goes, next term, because we're all in different schools. So we all had chiffon, but it was one.
It was one,
yes.
But nobody would know.
We don't share the chiffon. And then when all the people, when kids who thought they mattered were bought Travelites, there were bags called Travelites. I think Samsonites would be probably the equivalent now. And they'd go to school with the Travelites, and she couldn't buy for all of us. So she bought for my elder sister Travelite. She goes with it up to half term, then another one goes half term, and another one. So we all had Travelite, but it was one suitcase.
It was just one. Really interesting.
Yes.
So you go to school, and then you finish high school. How was that experience for you? And what exactly charted your path into what you would pursue next at university?
Well, I've told you that my mom actually had a lot of influence in my life, because when I was growing up, I was very sure that I wanted to do what my mom was doing. I went to St. Francis Angala Girls, and then I went to Limuru Girls. I did exceptionally well at my O-levels. Those days they never used to rank, but if they were ranking, I was probably amongst the top 20 nationally at that point. So I did very well, and I went to Limuru Girls, and like all young people, you kind of go through different things. At first I wanted to be a banker, because there was a lady next to who was near a house called Wanjira, who used to dress very well, and she worked in a bank. She was a single young lady, and I was like, wow. So I want to be a banker like her. But then after a while, but because I kept coming back to what my mom, was, and which is helping people, especially women and children. So I said, I'm going to be a social worker like my mom. But when I went to university, what happened is I was much more difficult getting to do social work than doing law, strictly, because you would be admitted to do sociology, BA rather, and once you do BA, then in your second year, you would go into an interview where you may or may not be taken to do social work. And so I didn't want to risk that. So I had an elder brother who was since died called Eric, who was at that time doing law. So Eric told me, no, why don't you also do law like me? And Eric had a lot of influence in our lives. I call him my brother, though he's actually my first cousin. He grew up with us and all that. And especially his early life, the parents and family lived in Nairobi, but because he had a disability, he was not able to manage going through all the drama in Nairobi, but her house was right next to school, so I was brought to stay with her. So I had a big influence in my life and the rest of us. And many of us actually then became lawyers because of Eric. Then I discovered that actually I could do a lot more as a lawyer of what my mother was doing. And yeah, so that I actually then started the same path. I did only private practice with Kamau and Kamau for 1 year, with Victor Kamau with the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, a blind lawyer, and a very good family friend of ours, who was a very good friend to my late brother Eric. And then I went into state law office as a civil litigation counsel for the government. I was representing government in matters of civil litigation. I hated that job.
You hated it?
Passion, because it was at a time when the state was very repressive. So I would be going into court to defend a chief who has beaten people up. And I was always clashing with my bosses because I would go the direct opposite. I would enter into negotiations when I shouldn't, or I wouldn't do a very good job of you know, what I was asked, because I didn't believe in what I was doing. So then an opening came up actually when I was having a lot of issues with my employment, because I was always
doing the direct
opposite. Because one time I actually went to court, I was taken to election petition court for 1 year. There was only then one election petition court, which was like the, you know, you remember how we had the presidential petition?
Yes.
So we had something like that for a whole year. So I was representing the government in such a court. And I didn't like the way things were going. So one day I actually just did I went and gave my opinion, which was against the government.
Oh.
So I woke up in the morning, headlines all over. And it was not headlines, you know, because they wouldn't say Millie Odhiambo.
Yes.
Millie Odhiambo was a little petite young girl. People are like, who is Millie Odhiambo? No, they said, the Attorney General says. So I was the one representing the Attorney General. So me, I went on my way. I don't know what I was going to do in Ministry of Works. So I come back into the office, there was pandemonium. So everybody's like, oh, you're in so much trouble. So I said, why? The Attorney General has been calling here personally. Can you run to his office? You are in trouble. So I said, oh, okay, so whatever. The guys are like, huh? What do you mean, whatever? So I go because I'm like, I know I'm going to be fired, blah, blah, blah. So I go that time, the Attorney General was Amos Wako. So when I go in, he says, Miss Odhiambo, have you seen the headlines? So I said, yeah. Are you okay? He was actually worried that I'd be so depressed. Because all the headlines were about me.
Thinking you're being fired.
I'm being fired. So
like,
are you okay? Because I was a very young girl, but very headstrong. So after a while, I knew I couldn't stay there. So I was actually, at that point, actually, I'd just been on a, no, it wasn't a suspension. My salary had been stopped because I wrote a very long letter to my boss. When they refused to allow me to go and leave, I went on leave anyway, and then so my salary was stopped as they were sorting out the issue, human rights issues. And eventually when they actually looked, they said, what I'm saying makes sense. And they said, can they move me to another department? So I was moved to the Advocates Complaint Commission. But unfortunately, which I loved, It was supposed to be a disciplinary thing. But they didn't realize they were putting the frog in its waters. Because when it's an advocates complaints commission, these are people complaining against advocates who have misused, you know, people's money. That's what I wanted to do all along. So I'm like, why didn't you put me here from the beginning, in the first place? But then by that time, because of the frictions that had been there, I decided to move on. I'd been appointed in FIDA as a legal counsel. So I only lasted there like a month or two, and I left. So that's how my journey with human rights began. Yes.
All right. And then now you also had a very deep interest in women and children, and therefore, you know, heading Cradle and founding Cradle. What was the journey there?
Oh, Cradle was such an amazing thing. Again, as I've told you, I was influenced very largely and greatly by my mother, because I lived with it. I don't even know how to explain to you. On a daily basis, my mother was handling such cases. We had people who used to come and live in our house. They would stay in our house for days. Persons, you know, now people don't understand, because persons with disability have offices they go to. Then they would come to the social work or social office where my mom was, and they would have no, you know, place to stay, because they'd be coming from very far rural places in Homa Bay County. But they would come to our house. They would stay, sometimes they stay in our house for a month. There's a lady who was being hosted in the hospital who had leprosy. She would come to our house. So I grew up really, that was the kind of life we lived, taking care of people who are needy. And I remember one special case where this young man, my mom helped him to get bursary, was a complete orphan. And my mom helped him to get bursary. But then the bursary she was able to get for him was not enough. So he was always more out of school than in. So he would walk around with this form looking for money. So one day he came to our place to just tell my mom the progress, you know, how much he had made out of it. And he had torn shorts. So my mom actually went and looked for my brother's clothes and gave him. And not because he had a lot, but so she inculcated in us the culture of supporting and helping. So when I went even to law school, when I did my LLB, my topic had something actually to do with children. And so my interest was already, you know, picked even from right that point. And so when I started Cradle started when I was working at FIDA. And what we noticed when I was at FIDA is that we were representing women, but every time people would come with children's issues, and we had nowhere to refer, because FIDA was not dealing with children's issues that time, if it was just a child, not a woman. So we would refer them to APCAN, and they would bounce back to us, because APCAN was actually not doing legal representation at that point. So I actually said, so which organization is actually representing children? And we discovered there was no one. So me and a group of my friends, including this Victor Kamau who I was telling you about, a friend, a girlfriend of mine called Anne Makome, amongst other Jackie and Am and others, we came together with a group of Christian lawyers, and we decided we were just doing work for free to support children. But then very quickly we realized we couldn't cope. So we said we need to come up with an organization that would help. So I actually left my job and started working with FIDA. I mean in Cradle. After working, I left Cradle. I left FIDA, went to ICJ, and from ICJ I went to work with the Cradle. And yeah, so that's how Cradle began. A lot by faith actually. My first desk was a carton.
Wow. I
would put a carton and cover with their cloth, and I remember one of the donors came and they were so impressed. I was like, wow, you know, like you have had so much passion that they said, wow, we need to support this passion. And I remember them telling me at one point, because we told them we have a resource center. So they said, where's your resource center? There were 6 box files. In my mind, I was actually seeing a big resource center, but there were 6 box files. That's how I started, small. And credo grew to help so many kids. Yeah, so, and that actually, as I was telling you, is the work my mom did. So I am happy I followed in her footsteps.
In her footsteps.
Yes.
I know you have been vocal about this, Mheshimiwa, and this is a bit personal for you, but you vocalized it. You're helping a lot of children without having a child of your own.
Yes.
But you have made peace with that. Talk to us about that.
Let me just say I'm weird. I'm weird because I say I'm weird because I think the way I see women who don't have children reacting is not the way I feel. I don't feel like there's something wrong with not having children. I just think it's the same as having legs or having whatever. Really, it's not a big deal for me. And that is not because I don't love, I actually love children. Let me not even say I'm weird, let me call it special. Special because God has given me the ability to love without having. That's something that is very rare, I think. And I think so because for many people they want to love what is theirs. God has given me the ability to love what is not mine. And I have taken care of so many children, including, you know, my nieces, my nephews, as I've told you, people who are not my relatives, and I've done this throughout my entire life. Sometimes I go through my things and I'm surprised, and for me it's not just the taking care of physically, because I've stayed with many kids in my house, raised them, they've gone to school in my house and been a mother to them. But I was more surprised that I was going through my things and I found that I was actually paying fee for someone that I had even forgotten. So that for me is, I really thank God for that as a special gifting. Some people think it's a negative, it's not. I see people always throwing it at me like they think it's a negative. For me, it's not. Yesterday, I was seeing my guy for a totally different thing. And he was asking me, are you still considering having a child? And I said, no, I'm not. I had given myself a deadline of last year when I turned 53, and I'd given myself that deadline. And the deadline came and passed, and I'm like, whatever, I'm not gonna do it. So he told me, no, I want you to rethink and see whether you can actually then go through IVF. So, and he told me a day after my auntie called me and told me the same thing. So I told them I'd actually close the chapter, but for the sake of the two of you, let me think through it. So I've given myself another 1 month.
Another not 1 year.
No, 1 month I think about it and I'm done. If I decide I'm doing it, I'll do it. If I don't want to do it, I'm not doing it. Why? I am not losing any sleep because I don't have a child. I am not worried because I don't have a child. I don't feel incomplete because I don't have a child. I'm okay. I am able to love a child that is not mine. I had... just to give you an example, there's a house girl I've had for almost more than 10 years. And when she came into my house, she was fairly young. She was in her early 20s or whatever. And she got used to my nieces and nephews, so she kind of grew up like part of my family. And so she even got her first baby when she was in my house. And when she got the first baby, because she got the baby in my house, I'm the one who did, you know, like everything, it's blah, blah, blah. The kid was so close to me that the child would wake up and the child would be the one to wake me up, knocking my door, running and jumping on my bed. And at one point, I actually found the baby, I was asleep and he was suckling my...
Oh, wow.
Yeah. The boy got like that close to me. And I remember at one point somebody was telling me, Millie, does this kid even know you're running? And he was a little boy.
Such innocence.
He was such a very, very close to me. And for me, it's not about him being my house girl's baby or whatever. He's just a sweet, loving kid. And I remember at one point, the mother decided to take him home to Kambani. And Kina Shebesh came, because even all my friends knew him. So when they came, they were like, where's Ryan? So I said, oh, the mother took him home. So they were sadder for me, because I'm like, how are you coping? So I said, well, you know, it's sort of just the same way anybody I'm close to can leave. Yes. Like if I'm close to you now and you leave, Yeah, I'd be happy if you're around, but if you're gone, that's okay. That's life.
Yes.
So it's not like I feel like I'm deprived of anything. It was never my kid. But it's not only Ryan. I've been used to so many kids like that all my life.
But society, the society that we live in right now, Mheshimiwa, and of course for those of us who are watching, are used to, you know, bashing women over issues like this. You know, earlier I had asked you about being a single woman, what that means in modern day society, not having a child of your own in modern day society. I mean, how do we get to a point where we change this narrative? I mean, we're in 2020, going into 2021, and yet you'll find people still bashing women over such issues.
Those are actually people who are archaic in thought, and they will catch up with us, as we are already headed.
You've gone.
We have gone, you will catch up with us. If you are still living in Stone Age, shauri yako, as we are there, we are ahead. So the world has changed. So if you want to live hanging out into archaic behavior, and I get so amazed when I go to Shago, the older folk have actually changed. It's actually the younger people who are still, you know, some of their younger people are very archaic thought. You find some young people coming to my inbox telling me, oh, that's why God has denied you a child. Who told you I was asking God for a child? And who told you I wanted a child? You, if you want to have a child, just have yours in peace. Yeah, there are people, look at the Kamala Harris. She's, I don't know how old she is now, but she's in her 50s. Yeah. I don't think she has a child, but she's vice president-elect. That doesn't change nothing. You know, but you, I don't know, you are not even there, whatever in your village, but you are telling people to have a child. Then where do we go with the child? Some of them have children, they're not even taking care of their children.
They can't even feed them.
They can't feed them, not because they are not able to, but because they are irresponsible. So really having a child does not define who you are. Being a single mother does not define who you are. Who you are is defined by yourself. And personally, nobody has permission to define who I am. That is me. You can only define me if you feed me. But if you don't, please, give me a break. And even if you feed me, there are boundaries.
There are boundaries. I want us to cross into the transition that now got you into Parliament. And you had mentioned earlier that the influence that your father had in your life at that time sparked, you know, the idea of politics in your mind. So what was the transition like for you, and what was the interest at the time, by the time you were getting nominated into Parliament? Did you think that this is what now I really actually want to do with my life?
Remember how I told you I'm weird?
Special. We said special.
I like saying weird or special. Some people consider it weird. I allow you to say it, but I consider it special. When I was around 12, 13, I actually very seriously considered running as Member of Parliament for Mbita.
13?
Yes.
Wow.
That's why I'm telling you how special, because I used to think ahead of my time. And I really thought about it very seriously, because I thought that if I want to be a Member of Parliament for Suba North, that I needed to go back to Shags. I needed to make connections with Shags, because growing up in Homa Bay was not our Shags. Our Shags is in Mbita, which is a neighboring constituency. So I thought I needed to go know people, build networks. At 12 years, you know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Yeah. But then my mother was a very strong Christian, and we were raised as very strong Christians. And there was this notion that Christians can't be politicians. So let me tell you, Jackie, this sumbued me when I was in high school, I think from 1 or from 2. For days, I could hardly sleep trying to figure out whether I want to be MP from Mbita or whether
in high school.
Yeah, from 1, from 2 happened. So eventually I decided I didn't want to be, because I thought it was unchristian. And but then there are 2 things that stuck in my mind. Of course, I remembered what my dad was all about. But I met a woman called Phoebe Asio, and I saw her life. People don't understand the power and the impact of their own lives in other people. Phoebe had such an lasting imprint in my life, because I saw when she was vying against Okiki Amayo. And Okiki Amayo was a powerful politician. He was more powerful than the president now. That's the truth, actually. In the Kanu era, if you are Secretary General of Kanu, he was extremely powerful. But Phoebe Asio vied against him and beat him. And I sat through that process until morning. Excuse at about my age 12, whatever. And that's why I was actually going, I must be like this Phoebe Asio. And I was like, how come there's only one woman vying in a hall that was full of men? I couldn't understand why there was only one woman. And I think also because of the kind of narrative I used to hear my mom say, because my mom was a feminist without realizing it. She was a Christian, very strong Christian, but she was also a feminist without realizing it. So she inculcated very strong feminist notions in us, again, without realizing. Because she would teach us about, you know, getting your space, about equality, and about all that stuff, you know. But then now, when, you know, there was a bit of a confusion for me again around Christianity and all this, so when I put it in the back seat, until sometime later got into civil society, when we now had coincidence of agenda with the political class, and we kind of had a love-hate relationship with the politicians. Sometimes we'd agree, sometimes we didn't, like the way I'm seeing now civil society are with one wing on BBI, then very shortly they will not be with them. That's how we were. So I learned to have a love-hate relationship with the political class. But then I was called at one point when the late Honorable Tino Kajwang was facing a political challenge in his political backyard. And I was called to go and help him. And I didn't even want to. And my friend who called me, when I remember we sat down and we discussed it, and I told me, you know, give me time to go and pray about it. I don't do anything incidentally without praying. I don't get into any venture, even now, without praying about it. So I told him, give me time to go and pray about it. And he told me, no, you have to hurry, we don't have that time. So shorten your prayer. Me, I wanted a whole month to pray about it. He said, no, on this one, pray for a day. So I shortened my prayer to a day and finally agreed to help. And that's how I got in. I went and helped Honorable Tino Kajwang, and it was like deep end. Difficult. The first venture that I got in, I was being jeered and heckled in equal measure in Bitter Town. I came to learn the dynamics around it later, and I'm glad I got in, you know, with the cheer and jeer, because then politics, there will always be people who love you and hate you, so I love that. And to cut a long story short, after I, you know, became chair of his campaign, helped him and all that, and after we finished, because ODM was almost set to our party leader was almost, you know, guaranteed a win. But then things went haywire during the party primaries, and I was at that time down, because me, when I get in to do something, I get in with my nose, head, yes, and everything about me. So I'd gotten in with so much, you know, strength and energy that I was actually having, they thought I was getting a stroke. So I was put on bed rest. But when I saw things going haywire, I called my friends back and Honorable Kajwang, and I came up with a Western Kenya presidential campaign. And in the Western Kenya presidential campaign, I coordinated more than 50 members of parliament to do a parallel presidential campaign in Western Kenya. And it became the second most powerful campaign tool. And after that, then the issue about who should be nominated came in. And people like Honorable Buru who were with me, I'm the one who was coordinating, they said this young, powerful lawyer called Millie Odhiambo, we need her in. So that's how I came in. Yeah.
All right. Transition, therefore, you're getting into parliament to be nominated. And I would like to use, not my words, but, you know, out there, you're said to be very controversial, very vocal, very outspoken, not afraid to speak your mind.
Yes.
Is this how you got into parliament immediately, or is this something that just grew and you said, you know what, it is like this, I will not hide behind anyone, I have to speak my mind?
It's, if you actually ask my classmates that I was with in university, even now they're shocked. That's not what I was. In college, I was a very quiet person.
Really?
Very quiet, very religious. You'll only find me in a group of CU. But for an observant person, they would have seen the fire in me, because when Ouko died, we actually went on demonstration. All the other people were scared of going, and then they said suddenly the CU girls were taking the front line. And I led the CU girls. Me and a good friend of mine called Alice Bett, the wife to Honorable Bett. And we took a front line. We even hijacked a bus. But we are CU girls. We hijacked a bus, went to Ouko's place. And when we went outside the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, I prayed outside, and everybody was shocked. They were like, Millie? Because I was very laid back. And my mother called my brother, who was doing his first year done. And my mother told him, you know, I want you to look out for... No, he called me. She called me and said, I want you to look out for your brother, who is more political. He's one of the people, him and my friend Mark, who pushed me into politics. And then she said, I want you to look out for your brother Dan, because he might be going out demonstrating. So Dan was trying to skive me because he knew I was going to try and stop him. Only to find me leading the...
After hijacking.
Yeah, so it's actually transition. It's a transition from the quiet me to this. But I don't also think it's a transition as such. It's just like I was a lion that was quiet and sleeping. All I needed to do was the right conditions to awaken me. So
to find your roar, so to speak.
Yes, to find my roar. So that's actually what I did.
From there, then you decide to go for an elective seat.
Yes, after my nomination.
Yes.
Yes.
How was that? Going to the ground, Sasa, you know?
It was not
Tough
easy,
things.
but maybe I can tell you for the nomination, I can tell you for a fact that me and Shebesh and the women who are in the 10th Parliament who are nominated, we actually defined the role of a nominated member. Right now I see members who have come in like Honorable Denita, and they are strong on, I'm a member with a disability and I stand on disability issues. You know, it was not defined anywhere. We came, created our terms of reference and moved with it. Yeah. So we defined what a nominated person does. And I'm so glad because I can see people have picked it up very well. So I no longer have to talk about certain issues because now we have people dealing with that. But now when I went into elected position, I'm telling you it was a surprise. And it was so much of a surprise that I ended up writing a book about it called Rego Be Rigged Out. Because I was like, I went back and told people like Martha Karua. Martha Karua has actually been really a mentor to me from when I was a young lawyer. I went and told people like Charity that I really admired a lot. In our house, actually, when we got into election, first time ever we did to support Charity Ngilu, I thought she was so pretty, you know, and with that fire, you know, that's such a wonderful combination. A pretty woman with the power, she was just, you know. So I went back and I told them, how come you've not written your story? Not many people know what women in politics go through. This elective politics. You just come and say it is hard. You must unpackage to the public what hard really means. And I can tell you, Jackie, by the time I wrote that book, I wrote it after elections and finished it in 2 months. I was just sitting and writing and writing and writing. But I've taken 10 years to redo it.
To redo it?
Yes, because the first 2 months was just raw emotions based on what I went through. But now after 10 years, I've removed the emotion and I'm more objective. That I can tell the story without being emotional. So that people can know, women need to understand. It is not easy, but it is doable. You will go, the milder ones are people telling you you are Migogo. Migogo is our daughter, not our wife. And we don't, you know, from a patriarchal society, I should be vying in Zimbabwe. Those are the easier ones. Those are not the more difficult ones. But you go through real serious challenges. The worst challenges, the effect it has on your own family. That is more difficult to deal with. Because I'm strong and I can deal with a lot of issues, but people don't understand sometimes the things they do and say, the impact they have, it has on families. Yes.
Now,
so that is a bit more difficult. Yeah.
And I want to take you to a point where, you know, some of the challenges that you have had to face. We've witnessed a lot of, I wouldn't want to call them interesting, but, you know, scenarios rather in Parliament where one would feel like, is this an affront to the female legislators? And I know one very particular incident that happened with you when, you know, your male counterparts sort of, you know, came at you. What was that like for you when they were tugging at you and basically trying also to, you know, get at your clothes? What was that like?
I thought it was really kiddish, that because we disagreed, and what I was trying to do was to make sure I reached where the speaker was, so that I can record my nays, because they were not allowing us to reach, and they were drowning us. So I said, because we intended to go to court to challenge that law, the security laws amendment, which was the infamous. I'm very thankful and happy that the court threw the issues we didn't like out. And because I wanted to make sure I reached there, what they decided to do, and what was never shared in the media because the power was blacked out, and our side was beaten completely. Both men and women were really beaten. And so people shied away and moved back, because we were fewer than the other side. So people moved away. But me, because I'm a kichwa ngumu, I said, I'm going pende msipende. So they wanted to teach me a lesson, that why do you think you are the one who can reach there? So at some point when I was trying to move, I couldn't really move. Then I discovered, because the one I noticed was somebody kept, because I wore a dress, and somebody kept pulling up my dress. So it's they pull it up, I pull it down. They pull it up, I pull it down. But then now when I tried to move forward, I couldn't, because there were two members pulling my panty. I was like, what nonsense is that? But then they kept insisting, and I know them. One of them is an old man who is in Parliament even now. One of them, fortunately, was some drunk guy who was not re-elected. One of them was a younger member of Parliament. And they were, when they did this, at the point they stopped is, I said, you know, you cannot shame me. You know, you can't body shame me. So I stood and pulled my dress and I said, what do you want to see? I mean, really? Which man has never seen thighs? So what do they want to see that they've never seen? So I told them, what do you want to see that you've never seen? Then they turned and said, this woman is mental. Yeah.
Complete.
Yeah, they said, what mental? You are the one trying to undress me. So I'm helping you to ask you, what do you want to see? But then now after I said that, they went and done it. I said that I removed my panty and threw, and I told them that's fine. So long as it was designed, shida ni go wapi.
As long as it was designed.
Shida iko wapi. Yeah.
But you know, from a house of decorum, or expected decorum, to a house of shame, because this was an act of shame, basically.
Yeah, it is. I thought, if you ask me, it was just kiddish. You can disagree with me without trying to undress me. Why are you undressing me?
On issues.
But that was not only that. You know, a lot of people said that day that Moses was the one who did that. I'm very honest, he didn't. Moses actually hit me on a nerve here. I didn't even notice it, because when we were moving, I kept seeing him moving with his fist like this, and I didn't understand what he was trying to do. But then apparently he was actually looking for a good opportunity to hit a nerve. So he hit a nerve, and I didn't notice until I went back in the house in the evening that I had a bump. And I didn't think much of it, so I just showered, and because I was fatigued, I took some painkillers and slept. But in the morning, I was having blood vision. Yes. So I actually went to the doctor, and I explained to them that I'm having blood vision. I was attacked in Parliament. So the doctor said, oh, it's going to clear. So I was given something for some drops, and I went home. But by evening, I couldn't sleep. I was in excruciating pain. And mercifully, I'd had some better pain, which is really very strong. So I took them and slept. And then in the next day, again, I was having issues of blood vision, but I was able to manage with that. And but by midnight that day I was readmitted. I was rather admitted in hospital with very severe pain. I spent in hospital for 2 nights. I almost spent Christmas in hospital, and to date I actually have a problem because of that beating.
There's one where you very vocally again were throwing jibes, and by jibes I'm being polite.
Yes.
Yeah,
at the president.
At the president.
Yeah, of course.
Some words I cannot repeat.
Yes.
Some words I literally cannot repeat.
Yes.
But what was up with that? Because you have never shied away from, throwing barbs at him.
Yes.
I would say insults at him.
Yes.
And then even as I allow you to speak about that, we very recently just saw you guys very cozy together.
Yes.
So what has that been for you? Is it personal or is it just politics? Because they say there are no permanent friends or enemies.
In the case of the president, he got me mad, and he got my constituents mad. And my constituents told me to tell him off. So I did. But especially on that day, he really got me mad. And he got me mad because it was about around the period where we are being beaten and stuff like that. And also what happened is that they had the numbers. So you don't need to then sit on my head if you have the numbers. Go and pass the laws, really. But you don't have to, I think Jubilee at that point was overdoing it. I was made to walk, and I had a knee problem. I couldn't walk. My car was not allowed to drive anywhere near Parliament. So I had to walk from Intercontinental and not to follow the main road. I had to go all the way around and walk barefoot to Parliament. Then what just set me off is that I get into Parliament and I find security, plainclothes, all over Parliament. And what else do I find? I find Jubilee side, their cars are parked inside. They've been allowed to drive in, but me, I'm being made to walk. I even called Nkainseri, who was the minister then, to tell him, excuse me, can I just be dropped in Parliament? Because I can't walk that far. And he refused to pick my calls. I asked the police, why don't you then transport me with your car? Okay, I've left my car, but I can't walk. Can I get into your car? No, I was really mad. I can't cheat you. And when I'm mad, I tell you off. Because I'm like, we have fought for democracy in this country and you're not taking us back. No way.
Looking back now, any regrets on calling His Excellency the President Fisi, Mshenzi?
For that time, I think it was okay for that time. Now we are buddies.
No, it was okay
for that time. It's not okay for now.
Then we see.
I'm not gonna call him now.
Then we see you.
Now he's a darling.
Now he's a darling.
Yes.
Oh really? Is it a personal darling or is it a handshake darling?
One of the things people also forget is I also know the president as a colleague. He was somebody I worked with very closely in a committee. We worked in the select committee on the Constitution, and we had a very good rapport as my colleague. And even though we were on the other side, and that was actually the most difficult committee, because it was a select committee on the Constitution. At a point, the country had just come from a really difficult time, and everybody was looking on us to bring this change. In fact, recently we were in Naivasha. You told people that we were there for 2 months, and it's true. As a committee, we were there for 2 months, and we would be there from morning to evening. Underlined a lot of things about the president, and which you can also say of Millie. That there are different sides of Millie, and so I can tell you one side of the president, which is the one side that I call the St. Mary's Uhuru, an extremely nice guy. That I even told people even when you're fighting, that the St. Mary's president is an excellent guy. And then there is the prince, yes. The prince is not a bad one, but is a bit spoiled, the prince. But then there's another one. That's the one that we fight.
The third one.
The third one is the one I find that comes occasionally. Yeah.
So we're coming from a point where now there's a handshake. Now, emotions are a bit relaxed in the country, although we're still seeing divisions out there.
Yeah.
And now we're getting into a point where there's this document called the BBI, and of course, the president and Raila Odinga rallying all of you, in fact,
yes.
to weigh, put your weight behind this particular document. There's a division, of course, about putting in amendments. But the general question now out there with Kenyans is this the right time to have the BBI? Facing the fact that we have COVID, people are having job losses, and now we're introducing a document that could take the country into a referendum. Is this the right time to have this happen?
I'm telling you, any time is the right time to build bridges. Any time is the right time to mend fences. And if you look at even what is going on in the US, like right now, it is both sad, but also with very many lessons that, the US has always been, this star, this shining star that we all want to emulate. But then we have also just realized that they're also facing the kind of same challenges. They are so divided. If you listen to the president-elect Biden telling people that his first thing would be to see how to unite the country. And even then, the president is still struggling. The president is still struggling with, whatever Trump is not accepting the results yet. He still wants to challenge it. It's kind of deja vu, like what has gone on in Kenya. And whoever comes in as president ultimately in the US must actually work at, trying to
bring the country together.
So it's not something unique to Kenya. But anytime you are able to, bridge that, it's always excellent and welcome. And a lot of people don't realize it, that even us as politicians, our best time is when we are peaceful. Like now, for me, I'm really happy that we are not fighting. I'm not going every weekend trying to tell people off and do what. That's why I've added. The only problem is I've added too much weight.
What you call it, the stay-at-home weight.
The stay-at-home, but also the handshake weight, because you are very peaceful. Yeah.
But how will expanding the executive help solve the issues that the country is facing? Because an election is a competition.
Yes.
There has to be a winner. There has to be a loser.
Yes.
And saying whoever is second best then becomes the leader of opposition. How does just basically expanding the executive come and solve the perennial issues that we've had?
Well, it may not solve them completely, but it will help. I'm lucky to have served in the, Kibaki administration. That's when I actually got into parliament. And I can tell you for a fact that was one of the best parliaments. And it was one of the best parliaments because for me of two things. One, because we had that expanded executive. And because you have that expanded executive, it gives, like if you see right now in the constitution, we have the what we call the executive that we say will have the face of Kenya. And then you only have the president and the deputy. But now if you actually had the premier and two deputies, it expands the face of Kenya in the executive.
Agenda, which has given the House quite a headache, and
Yes.
as a female legislator and a very one who is in the front line, why number one hasn't it been able to pass after very many attempts? And number two, do you feel like the what is put in the BBI document to scrap off perhaps women rep positions and instead have 47 senators, so to speak, expand the number of legislative seats that are there? If the gender agenda hasn't worked, affirmative action rule hasn't worked now, will the suggestions in the BBI document actually help to address that?
Well, to some extent, it will not get the 2/3. That I can tell you. It will not get the 2/3, but it will move us a little. So it will actually move the incremental. And why the reason why I can say it, but before I say that, maybe let me just answer why haven't we reached there.
Yes.
We have tried, but because of patriarchal firm stance by especially our men colleagues, it's been very, very difficult. In the BBI, if you actually look at it even mathematically, in the Senate we have 16 women, and then we have 2 which is one where for the youth there's one youth who is male and female, one person with disability, male, female. So if you add actually in Senate we have 18. So if that is, the proposal is to scrap that and instead replace with 47. So there they will be again, because we're moving from 18 to 47. Now in the National Assembly, there is a proposal to remove the 47 plus 6. And plus 6 here is the nominated, because the nominated are 12 and 6 go to the women. So it's to remove 47 plus 6. But then there is the 70. And it now depends on how we work with the 70. The suggestion now is to use a zebra approach. And some people have also said we use a multi-approach, not just a zebra, elephant, and whatever approach, which basically means that you have the women, men, and youth, but there's no reason why the youth cannot be women. If we go that direction, then we can actually make very significant gains. That out of the 70, if you're able to get even, say, 60, then we will have gained, because we would have lost 47 plus 6, which is how many? 47 plus 6 would be 53,
yes.
And then would have gained 60, which therefore means we would be having how many extra? 7 plus the extra in Senate.
Yes.
So actually would have had a very
some strides there.
It may not reach 2/3, but would have made in Senate it would definitely pass. Yeah, but if you take Parliament as a whole, which was the thinking, that when you take Parliament as a whole, then it may be 2/3. But if you take National Assembly, Senate, then we would have a problem with the National Assembly.
All right.
Yeah.
As we wind up, in the spirit of unity and unifying the country,
Yes.
if Raila Amolo Odinga was on the ballot, or wasn't on the ballot, would you support any other candidate other than him?
I support my party, so I'll support what my party go with. So if my party, because that has happened in the past, when I started getting into very, into politics strongly at the point I told you, my party leader actually said Kibaki Tosha, and we supported Kibaki. So because I adhere to my party, position and standing and principle. So if my party says so and so is the one we are supporting this time, that's who we'll support.
That is the direction you will take.
Yes.
Of
course, for me, I'd prefer if it is Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga. But if the party were to go a different direction,
you will stand by the party's decision.
Yes.
All right. Our final question to you would be, looking into the next general election, Millie Odhiambo is going to be still Super North legislator?
Yes, I'll be still Super North legislator. Yes.
You're not going for any other seat at the moment?
No.
You still want to stick by your constituency?
Yes, because when I get into any position, I normally get in with a strategic plan and a very clear vision and objective. And there are things that I'm doing currently in Super North, which I would like to finish. And when I'm done, then I would see what is my next direction. And remember, I told you that everything I do, I pray first.
Yes.
So my prayer has told me to stay there.
It is divine.
It's divine.
It is divine.
It's divine.
What does a Milo guess? I mean, we're very curious. For some of us who don't understand the language really,
Yes.
What does a Milo guess?
A Milo geza.
S or Z? You said it's S or Z?
It's Z.
It's Z.
In Luo you don't have S, but
Z.
In Suba you have Z.
So
it's a Milo geza. Geza, when I started doing my political campaigning in Suba, even though I'm a Suba, but I didn't understand the Suba language because it's one of the threatened languages. So everywhere I walked, everybody would be like, Geza. So I was like, what is this, Geza? And they were amused. They kept telling me, oh, the Millie who say keeps asking us, Geza. So they started calling me Geza. So when I went out of Suba, and I would be greeting people, they would be like, ODM, Chungwa. Then I told them, no, I'll greet you the way we greet in Suba. If I say ODM, you say Geza. So I started saying Geza, and everybody now would say, which Millie? The one who says Geza. So that's how I became Geza.
And Amilo?
Amilo is Luo Millie.
Oh, it's just a Luo version of saying Millie.
Yeah.
When I meet you in the street, I'll be saying, Mheshimiwa Milo Geza.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And we're so honored that we had you on the hot seat tonight. Of course, do make sure you subscribe and join us next week, and on Sunday rather, at 8 p.m. Have a good week and God bless. Thank you so much, Mahesh.
Thanks.
Tumeshukuru sana.
Asante.